Welcome.
Welcome.
Nice. Audio is sounding good. Welcome to today's Reconsider It live stream, my friends. You made it. This is the good place you want to be. And here on this live stream, you are going to get a very engaging discussion, which you are encouraged to participate in, whether you are here live in the chat or you are watching on replay and you leave something in the comments. This very engaging discussion that you're going to get here over the next however long will be on the topic of communication. What is communication? What is it based on? How can you use that to your advantage? And also today, this was a topic from the previous discussion stream called Why Miscommunication. We're going to continue those themes. And I'm going to add a little bit today on the topic of influence, including things, as I say, that you can experiment with, explore, merge with your own creativity and your existing knowledge base. So this is going to be both a theoretical as well as practical and actionable experience for you, which is good. And I'm going to make it even more good by turning more lights on. Now it's even gooder. The music you hear is a live stream of mine. It's one of my unspoken streams, instrumental. My regulars know that I do live looping. I do improvised live looping. And we are simply doing a different format of stream. But this is one of my looping tracks in the background, just as you're listening to this. I see we got Love Powerpuff in the place. Yeah. Did it. That's good. So as I play this unspoken stream of mine, and you can see the exact episode. I believe it was episode 2 from June 16th, 2025, question mark. Double check it in the video description. But that's when this episode came from if you want to go listen to it. In any case, while we listen to this instrumental music in the background, we will be talking about this topic of communication and influence. And as I say, even though I have a couple of things prepared that I say, I have to talk about this a little bit, even though I have a couple of practical, actionable things for you that benefit you, I encourage you to let me know your thoughts. Again, that'll influence where we go. There's a lot of room for you to share your insights and thoughts and whatever follow-ups you may have. So on this topic of communication, as an FYI, I happen to have professional experience with this topic of speaking and thus communicating. That's the kind of communicating I'm talking about. Speaking such as speaking to people, including speaking to groups of people, but everything I'm talking about applies on all scales. I've been doing that stuff as an educator for 25 years. I've been an educator for 25 years. I've taught thousands of people. I've coached people. I've coached hundreds of people on this sorts of stuff. Some of the things I'm going to be introducing you to today. I actually even lead a team of coaches. So I'm a coach of coaches. In any case, what that means is you can trust me and the things that I'm going to be sharing with you. I see that Cindy's in the place. Yes. As is Ed. Yes. Ed Colunga. Let me get that correct because that is official. We are official in the place here. So this is good stuff. You're going to get some, as I say, fundamental insights, and I encourage you to share your thoughts as well. I have a couple things I wrote up over here. It's like, dabble on these things. So I have a skeleton, basically, of things we can talk about. And I will, where possible, You know, if we talk about things that are a little tangential, that's cool. But I'll try to see, can I link it back in some way to these communication topics that we're talking about? Communication and influence, that is, getting someone's attention. Did you realize that? Have you ever heard that before? That this idea of influence, like you're influencing other people in some way or another. Did you ever hear anyone talk about it in the way that influence is predicated upon attention? Like if you have any hope of having any influence in any way, you have to start with attention. And so that's part of what I'm going to give you today. How do you do that? How do you speak in a way that does that? Sasti Albert is with us. Yes, that is awesome. That is a very good thing. The previous discussion stream that I did, even though my regulars know I normally do these music streams, that's what you're listening to in the background, one of my instrumental music streams. But the previous discussion stream, which was called Why Miscommunication, in that one I established this concept of a driver that I'm going to briefly recap now and build upon that as we go into this. So let's see what that's about. I see that we have Maybe Biking in the place. Yes, yes. Don V is with us. I like it. That was really good. I have a comment that says, did anyone ever tell you look like Chuck Todd? I don't even know who that is. So I have not heard that before. Should I Google that? Should I look at who Chuck Todd is? And then bring us back to our discussion about communication, which is pretty good. Chuck Todd. Who is Chuck Todd? Who is this guy? He looks like some kind of... He's a news guy? Is that what this is? He's some kind of news person? A spokesman of some kind? Now I have a new reference to point to. That's pretty good. So in the previous stream, as I say, the one that was Why Miscommunication was the name of it, I established this concept of drivers coming from the world of computer engineering. So if you have a background in computer engineering, you're probably gonna have a sense of what I'm talking about very quickly. If you have not had experience in the world of computer engineering, I'm going to try to summarize this in a concise package for you. But the idea is, and continues to be, the idea is that if you have a piece of hardware, you know, like a mouse or a keyboard or your monitor or whatever, these things have to connect to your computer. They have to have some way for the piece of hardware and the computer to communicate, so that if I'm using my mouse, then I, press a button on it. All the computer really gets, physically, all the computer gets is a bunch of ones and zeros. So the computer has to have some way of knowing, when I got this ones and zeros, what does that even mean? How do I interpret this? What do I do with this? I click a button on the mouse, and it gets a bunch of ones and zeros. With a driver, the driver for that mouse, the computer is able to interpret the ones and zeros and say, oh, that was a left click. Got it. We're in good shape. Or with a driver from the keyboard, it can go and, you press a button and the computer receives a bunch of ones and zeros. It's like, what do I do with these ones and zeros? But then it uses the computer driver and it says, oh, I see, you press the button for the letter L. Okay, good. I know what you're doing right now. So the whole idea that I was drawing in the previous stream, and I continue to draw right now, is how there is this idea of a defined driver, a defined lexicon, a defined means of interpreting. Just this concept. Here's the thing, I'm holding it in my hand. It is, what is it? It's a driver. It's the means of interpreting signals. Because signals themselves don't carry meaning. There's nothing in the ones and zeros that you got from the mouse when you click a left click on the mouse. There's nothing in those ones and zeros that means anything. The meaning only comes when when the signal gets decoded by the computer. And my assertion when it comes to people, humans, is that when you say something to someone or someone says something to you, you are in some kind of communication exchange with a human, with a person, that there is some layer of communication that's going on where you have a driver, metaphorically, in some way, in your mind, in your psychology. You have a driver that is interpreting what the person is saying. Because, in the most literal sense, the person, if you're speaking to them, let's say you're verbally speaking to them or speaking with them, then all that's really happening is there's like sound waves moving through the air, and they, press on your eardrums. Like, that's what's occurring physically. And your brain needs some way of knowing what all that means. Now, there is a layer of being able to speak the same language, so you know the words I'm saying. But my assertion is that there's another layer beyond that, this driver layer, that requires you to also know things like the context that the person is speaking in, or some kind of cultural reference they might have made, or other things besides just words. You might also need to interpret things like body language and facial expressions and all this kind of stuff. All these are just different layers of interpretation, different filters through which meaning is assigned to this, raw signal of sound vibrations through the air. So there's an idea of drivers. Meaning is not in the signal that is sent, but rather meaning is in how you or the recipient decodes or deciphers the meaning. And part of my assertion in the prior stream was that it's not productive or realistic to get stuck in a place if you ever feel like you ever feel frustrated. Oh, you know what I mean, or why frustrated why someone doesn't seem to understand what you're saying, or any business like this. That if that ever happens, if you find yourself in that position, my assertion is simply like, well, that's 100% to be expected, because no two people can have the same drivers. Your means of interpreting communication, it's not like something that is inborn in humans that you share with other people. Your drivers, your means of interpreting exchanges and experiences and language, these things come from your history, uniquely your history, your, not only your experiences, let's say like social experiences, relationships and such, that's part of it, but also things like your education you had. By the time most people, if they go on beyond a high school level, you go into the college level, there starts to be this divergence of what you study, let alone if you go into higher levels beyond just an undergraduate, or whatever the level might be. There's just this high divergence of what people dive deeply into. And what you dive deeply into is, again, going to have a large impact upon how you interpret things from just raw signals that themselves don't necessarily carry any meaning in them. So, because everyone will have such a different amount of experiences, education, cultural consumption, books you've read, movies you've watched, all this kind of stuff. By the way, Probes is in the place. Yes. Woo! I put my arms up in a woo like position. There's a lot of woo going on, and it is good. It is mutually beneficial to all. So the insight from the prior stream, again, just recapping that, the insight being that everyone necessarily has unique, quote unquote, drivers, means of interpreting interactions, and even means of interpreting words. What a given word means might mean something different to two different people. So you could have two people listen to the same sentence, and they have totally different meaning come out of it. And that's not that's not due to some like mysterious mystery. It's just because humans, each human uniquely, individually has their own means of interpreting things based on what they've read and what's the local rumor, including in their social media bubble. Like, what are they being programmed with on a daily basis? What kind of brainwashing are they joyfully consuming and being impacted by, including you and me? I don't mean to I don't mean to like set myself apart from this kind of suggestion that people are brainwashed by their social media consumption. I mean to indicate that I am part of that as well. The whole idea of being brainwashed is not something that you can aware your way out of. You can easily be brainwashed and influenced even if you know it's happening, or even if you know that it happens but you're not paying attention to it right now. You still continue to be brainwashed. The brainwashing and influence is inevitable based on the frequency of consumption and engagement. And that's part of what we're going to go to in this stream today as well. By the way, I see Warheart. Woo! Warheart is with us. Yes. That was good. That was really good. So everyone has unique drivers. Cool. I'm with it. That's where we got as far as the last stream was. But in the last stream, we didn't take that any further. It was just like, hey, gnaw on this, chew on this idea, enable your intellectual enrichment, which is good, but it's also good for you to have something more practical, some kind of thing to work with, which is what I'm now bringing in on this stream. Something that you'll find ways to fit these insights into your life, into your like unique situation, whoever you're communicating with, whoever you're trying to have some kind of influence upon, a benevolent, ethical influence upon. Warheart says I'm open to insights. That's really good. I'm looking forward to your insights too. So once again, for everyone who's joining us, while I do have a couple of points planned to dance around and discuss, I have a few points. I also encourage you to share your thoughts and insights. Undoubtedly, you have a plethora of experience that would inform your contribution. So I very much encourage that. This is meant not to be just like a lecture, even though, as I say, I've 25 years experience as an educator, so I could do that. I could, but these discussion streams are meant to be like guided by general themes that I bring, but also malleable for your input and influence. So in any case, we're finally at the point that we can talk about what am I going to add in this stream. You got a nice recap. I thought things through, or rephrased things a bit. I gave you some different ways to think of it other than just what I did on the previous stream. So that's good. You're getting a lot of value here. But now I'm going to add more, because what can you do with this insight? What can you do with this insight about the fact that different people have different drivers? Well, here's the insight, my friends. Dun, 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 dun. Drum roll, please. Dun. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. Maybe I should do that. I should do that more. Yeah, I guess if you do that on your diaphragm, it does that wobbly voice thing. Are you feeling ready to hear this insight? Have I built up your intention to listen? Here it comes. In order to communicate in any way, it must be predicated upon the other person's driver. Like, what you say what you try to do, however you try to communicate with or influence, it must be all beginning, ending, and all throughout interwoven with the other person's drivers. So what do they care about? What do they think in terms of what's their frame of reference? What do certain critical words mean to them? This is the insight. This is the first insight I'm sharing with you that we'll continue to build upon in subsequent discussion streams as these continue to evolve. And by the way, I encourage you to share your feedback with me regarding what you think of these vertical discussion based streams as an addition to what I normally do with my music based streams. I'm still looking for your feedback on that since it's an experimental form of stream, and we'll see how it continues to grow and evolve. So the new insight being that your attempts to send a signal, it's not that you like package something up and you said it very clearly. You phrased it perfectly, and then you sent that perfect package to the other person. Why did they not unpackage your perfect package and hear you perfectly? Because it's not about how you package it, it's about how they hear it. That's why. Oh man. Probe says, would you consider this perhaps the other's interpretive layer? Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfectly suitable rephrasing of what all we're talking about here. Yeah, I'm using this computer engineering term, the drivers. That's very technical. There would be a lot to dive into if you wanted to like really dive into drivers. There would be a lot of additional insights you could glean from that. I just happen to be using that metaphor. But yeah, you're right. The other person's interpretive layers. I would emphasize that part of what I assert is that there's a plural layers, but yeah, how they interpret. Warheart says, I'm looking forward to getting caught up on the first one. That's good. That's good. I'll be looking to see your comments afterwards to see what you have to relate with or contribute to or some kind of follow up or whatever it is, whatever you know, whatever may so move you. And what so moves you would be what I want to speak in terms of in order to have you hear something. I'm now going to take an unofficial drink. If you would like to cheers along, that would be perfectly acceptable. This is not a formal cheers ritual. My regulars know what that's all about. I am just having a drink, but if you'd like to drink along, I'm happy to simultaneously have this delicious beverage along with you. Oh man, that's good. Warheart says, I went on a trip recently. I'm getting back and I'm tired. Well, this is good. This is a great stream for you to just like relax, and it's okay if you're tired in it. That's totally all right. You're in the right place. That's good. Now you may or may not have noticed how I just spoke with Warheart there. That I said, look, you're in the right place. It's totally okay if you're tired and you want to relax. This is exactly what you need right now. Feel free to hang out with us and just take it easy. That's me talking in terms of what Warheart is needing. This is the new insight that I'm sharing with you on this stream. It's this idea of like listening to what the other person says, because people reveal everything about what they want or need in how they talk. Sometimes it's really obvious. Sometimes they'll like directly sometimes they'll directly tell you. Or like for example, I told you earlier that I'm an educator with 25 years of experience. Much of that, nearly 20 years of that, has been in a professional setting. And many times, most of the time, when I'm speaking in a professional setting, it's very well defined. It's very well defined and known exactly why you're speaking. You're speaking at some kind of meeting And so it's, why are you speaking at this meeting? Well, because I have to tell people this, this, and this, and this. It's very well defined why you have to speak. So that's a very easy context to target this whole thing. Just speak in terms of what they need. I'm here in the first place because they need me to tell them blah, 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 blah. So I package everything in terms of that thing that they need. That's how I talk. I choose my words around what they need, what the other person is there for. But my assertion is that this applies in any context at all. And earlier, as Warhart says that he's tired at the moment, I phrase things in terms of, yeah, it's totally cool to be tired. This is a good place for you to be when you're tired because you don't have to necessarily do anything. You could take it easy. You join us when you want to join us. You're absolutely in the right place. You're going to love this whole experience even while you're tired. That's me talking in terms of what Warhart has revealed that he, you know, would benefit from at least. Warhart says he gets positive charges from every episode. See, Warhart's my man. I got to give him the high five. Whoa! Look at that. That's the first high five of the stream, which is very good. I'm reading what Warhart says in the chat right now. Oh, actually, there's something that Probe said that I missed earlier. Going back to the interpretive layer. Let me get caught up on this. Probe says, of course, what one says in the context of one culture may have no meaning in another. Oh, Probes is like totally with it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, totally. Yeah, these interpretive layers, these drivers that a person has, they're entirely determined by their cultural experiences and their personal experiences. Like those are the two arenas. There's, if you want to argue, there's also like, see, I put these as both cultural. I said education earlier, but then also just like media consumption. Well, I guess there's also social media consumption. So that's a third category. All right. So I would say there's three categories in my current thinking. I'm open to hearing that there's actually, yeah, I would say there's a third one or a fourth one rather. Okay, here are the influences that I assert. So there's just like personal experiences, your personal exchanges. You one time, hiked a mountain that, this other person didn't hike. So how can you really communicate that? But you're going to refer to some kind of landmark. So just your experiences, that's one arena that informs your drivers or your interpretive layers. Your personal experiences, including relationships and such that go good and bad, that inform how you interpret future experiences, new experiences, current experiences. It all goes through these interpretive layers. Um, Personal experiences. Then earlier I said education as well. So that's like formal study, instruction. So that's the second arena through which your interpretive lens is informed. Then also, I mentioned earlier, just like media cultural consumption, including books you've read or movies you've watched, anything in that sort of arena. Earlier, I also said social media. That's a new one in human history, anyway. This is something that I don't know why more people don't talk about this, honestly. There are people who do talk about this, but I'm surprised this isn't more of a commonly assumed foundation for discussion. The idea that social media and the influence that is possible through it is entirely unprecedented in all of known human history. We've had things like television and movies. You could put that in the same category since many movies are, in fact, propaganda, even though we don't necessarily know it. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that I can point to certain ones, but just that's, pretty straightforward. Some film is genuine like art. Some is, consumer for profit, and some is just propaganda. We don't necessarily know which is which. So anyway, even though that's true that some film is propaganda, or there's news media, we've had all that for however many decades, or probably over, yeah, a couple centuries at least. But nothing compares to social media in terms of brainwashing, propaganda, all of that. And I don't necessarily mean like, I do mean to include things like political such. I'm not going to dive into that. I do mean to include that, but I don't exclusively mean to include that. So I mean any kind of influence or propaganda through social media. It's extraordinarily potent, and my point being in this conversation that that is a sphere that informs a person's interpretive layer, because people have radically different streams. If you follow any kind of social media platform, Instagram, Twitter, or I guess X, um, Facebook or TikTok, or whatever it is, YouTube, whatever it is that you consume, you are being curated the algorithm, and all of this. I'm just fitting it into the conversation of your interpretive layers. You get fed what you get fed by your algorithm, and I'm not commenting on algorithms. All I'm saying is you have been curated. Your user account has been curated something. I'm not commenting on what it's been curated by, or actually I can comment on that. I will comment on it. It's curated by your previous interactions. If I mean, if you didn't know that, the more that you interact with something, the more that your algorithm is tailored to give you something similar to what you've interacted with. And so social media algorithms, of course, per user account radically vary, or can radically vary, like extremely drastically, until you get people with such wildly divergent worldviews that they see the same world, but they interpret it in completely opposite ways, or incompatible ways. Even though they're seeing the same world, they're just fed a different stream of perspective on it. Social media is extraordinarily influential upon your um, perception layers, your drivers. So I'm simply including that in the list. As I said, personal experiences, including, I one time visited this very impressive, geographical landmark of whatever sort, or also personal experiences like relationships you've had, relational experiences with other people, your peers. Um, Also, education, formal education, things you put effort into consuming and adopting. There's a different element of your psychology that gets engaged when you are engaged in it and you are diving into it with conscious intention. There's a different element of your mind is opened up when you do that. Then I also included cultural consumption, books and movies, and really anything at all along those lines. Creative deliverables, creative products. And then I also added social media. And then I said that there's one more, but I didn't say it yet. So I'm going to say it right now. And that is some form of religious or spiritual um, thing that you're receptive to. Some kind of religious or spiritual thing that you're receptive to, whatever that might be, whatever form that takes. I'm simply including it as another. That was my fifth in my list of things that inform your unique set of drivers, your unique interpretive layers. I'm getting caught up on the chat here. Warharder saying the internet is changing how humans evolve. I agree with you completely. perhaps in another stream in the future, we'll get into topics like what the internet really is. My assertion is that the internet is synthetic, um, a synthetic window into an extra dimension that humans are not biologically equipped naturally to tap into easily. That's my assertion about what the internet is. It's a technological synthetic window into this additional dimension of reality that is not readily available to humans biologically. Or at least it doesn't seem to be. Sometimes I wonder if the internet is like a training ground to develop some kind of additional sense in humanity, so that if we lose the internet, there still is some like biological habit we've developed of perceiving things in a certain way that the internet trained us on. That's some far out there musings. I don't have complete thoughts on that. Anyway, I agree. I'm agreeing with what Warhart says. That's my bottom line. I'm agreeing with Warhart when he says that I think the internet is going to change, or is changing already, how humans evolve. Totally. 100%. 100%. Probe says there's a negative impact on short-term memory. There absolutely is. Yeah, that's one of the things that I had to research that, at least briefly, as a part of my work as an educator. That was part of what I had to include in some of the trainings and classes that I give on how to engage people and how to interact with their short-term memory and such, which again is part of what I'm including here for you, so you benefit and you have all of this goodness. By the way, when I say that I'm giving this to you so that you benefit and you have all this goodness, that's once again me doing this packaging that I'm talking about, framing things in terms of how you're going to interpret it goodly. You're going to interpret it in a way that is good, that you would respond to positively. The most you can do is try to package things in a way that are likely to land well with the other person based on their drivers, based on their interpretive frameworks or their interpretive layers. And one sort of generic way, that this is probably the most actionable thing that I'm going to give you on this whole stream right now. This is probably the most actionable thing. Get your like memory or your note-taking device ready. The most actionable thing I'm going to tell you is, even though I'm giving you this very let's say like conceptual frame for thinking, just like, oh, try to speak in terms of what the other person, values or what they want, or speak in terms of what will benefit the other person. Even though I'm giving you this general conceptual way of beginning to approach the topic of influence, I'm also going to give you this actionable thing, this thing you can practice. Now you are very ready to hear what I'm going to say, correct? You're very interested in what my actionable tip is going to be. And me creating time is just making you kind of want it a little more. That's more technique. But here's the actionable thing for you, my friends. Even though sometimes you can listen to what someone says, like when Warhart said he was tired, and I phrased everything in terms of how this is good when you're tired, there's also general things you can do, kind of always. And that includes the following. These are things that you can do in pretty much any context, talking to anyone, whether it is in your personal sphere or it's in some kind of professional sphere, the workplace, or it's you're interacting with some random person, some random stranger at the grocery store or at a nightclub or whatever. Here are some things that generally motivate people and make them want to listen to what you're going to say. These are universally applicable. You have to get the person's attention first. I mentioned that earlier. That's the first step to influence. is getting the person's attention. How do you do that? How do you get their attention? Here are some things you can experiment with. One is you give them something that will empower them in some way, make them more capable, make them more competent, make them more like able to manage their life better, make them more. Empowered is really it. That's the first category. So you say this is going to benefit you so much in this way. You are going to be able to, be influential to other people if you talk to them in ways that they want to hear you talk to them. That's me just framing what I'm talking about in terms of what'll benefit you. You're going to be an influential person if you do this. Look at how you're going to be so capable. That's me just talking in terms of the thing benefiting you. So that's making you more empowered. That's the first category. Speak in terms of what will empower the person. And again, I'm not saying that you directly promise them something. It doesn't have to be so overt, although that's a technique also. But it can be very subtle, just you're speaking in a frame, a way of thinking that benefits them. Another one, in addition to the empower one, how does the person benefit from this? Another one, another general category you can express or experiment with and explore is things that make the other person feel good, things that make them have a good, pleasurable experience. Oh, you're going to love this a lot. You really are going to enjoy this when, boy, it's going to be so satisfying to you when you try some of these techniques and you see how much you can command someone's attention. Boy, it's going to feel so good. You're going to be so proud of yourself and feel empowered. So that's me saying you're going to love this. This is going to be good. You're going to have a good time with this. That's another category of framing that you can use to influence or get someone's attention. And another category is the whole concept of avoiding something undesirable, whether that's avoiding pain or avoiding some kind of fear in some sense, and not even in some sense, in like very tangible, research supported manners. One of the things, if not the number one thing, that motivates a person's attention is fear. And you can easily imagine, evolutionary biology reasons why. Why would fear be the thing that gets someone attention the most? But it is, and that's what you can use for your benefit to be more effective in this area. Is you can frame things in terms of, hey, look, you know how it would be so awful and terrible if blah happened, and the person's like, oh no, yes, I don't want that to happen. You can be like, well, good news, I have got the solution to that. So this is another way to just like, in any situation, I've just given you three categories. I've given you three categories of framing that you can experiment with in your conversations in order to get someone attention, and then from there you can have some kind of influence. So again, to repeat the three, they are something that empowers the other person, something that makes the other person more capable, have a brighter future, anything along these lines, something that empowers. That's the first category I gave you, empowering. The second category I gave you was pleasure, something that is enjoyable, feels good, fulfilling, satisfying, anything in this orbit of things that are pleasurable, something that's desirable, something that somebody would just subjectively want to taste, something good. That's the second category, is pleasure, empowering, pleasure. The other one, the final category, is avoiding some kind of pain or fear. So you could frame that as avoidance, but you could also frame it as some kind of, let's see if I can come up with a one word summary of this. We have empowering, we have pleasure, and then we have, let's say, like strategy. You give the person a strategy for avoiding or evading that painful or fear-inducing thing. By the way, I see with us right now we have the crazy rabbit. Yes, this is very good. I got to get caught up on the chat here, my friends. I have given you the very empowering list of 3 things that you can experiment with. By the way, if you go back and listen to this stream, just count up the number of times that I have said things like, "This is going to benefit you so much. Look at how you're going to be capable to do this. Man, this is going to be so good. You're going to love this when this happens. You're going to be able to do that." The answer is I've done it a lot of times. So this is once again I'm kind of demonstrating what I'm talking about here. The cool techniques that I'm giving you so that you can be more influential and successful in your communication in your life. I've just given you these 3 like really nice actionable categories that you can experiment with. We're talking about this whole idea of the drivers and that you need to talk in terms of what the other person uh, values or what their frame of reference is, even in terms of what words mean to them. That's how you approach your communication with them. These are all the tips that you can improve your communication techniques and strategies with. Very, very excellent content you're getting here on this discussion stream. But I need to get caught up on the chat here because Wabbit came into the place. It was like almost 10 minutes ago. I got to get caught up on the chat. Let's see what's happening here. We got the internet. Yes, we talked about the internet. I gave you my very excellent summary that the internet is a synthetic window into an extra dimension that humans don't have biological access to. Let's say like native, naturally developed biological access to. And then I mused that the internet may be some kind of training wheels for humans to develop that more. That will even have some kind of evolutionary um, path that happens where, maybe humans even develop a new sensory organ. That'd be dope. I'm really going wild at that point. What else we got going on here? Probes back like 15 minutes ago as I get caught up on the chat here. Probe says search engines alone. Oh, the short-term memory. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I mentioned how that's part of my professional world. I had to research that briefly as a part of some resources I was developing, some training, education, training trainers how to train. I'm a trainer of trainers of trainers. I am the lead. I am the lead of that program. Yeah, people have very short. It's like 10 to 15 seconds short-term memory. Sustained attention span can be up to about 15 to 20 minutes. You got to keep changing things. Warheart says, are we getting some kind of chips that get made into your brain? Oh, This World Needs a Hero is with us. Yes! Man, it's good. That's real good. Yeah, the whole like technological interface with your nervous system. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. I'm not going to be first in line for that. I'll tell you this, that's a certainty. I'm happy to be last in line for that, perhaps. We have to see a lot more about what's going on. I do like the idea of some kind of biological interface with, some kind of cybernetic augmentation, including for someone who would have an artificial limb, having some way to have that automatically respond to their automatically respond to their nervous system signals. That'd be dope. And it would somehow have to have some way, if there'd be a driver involved. Isn't that good? Wasn't that a nice like tie-in? There would have to be a driver for that chip to interface with your nervous system. And I don't know how that will work, but apparently there is some success already with that. So that seems to suggest that there is some kind of driver for the human nervous system. Question mark? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm misinterpreting that. Maybe my driver on this topic of whether there's a human nervous system driver or set of drivers. Going back to the topic of algorithms and how social media informs your interpretive framework, Probe says algorithms are driven by profit, alas, regardless of what their consequences may be, for good or bad. Yeah, I didn't comment on that. So I wasn't driven. I wasn't necessarily commenting earlier on the algorithms themselves and what they feed you. I didn't make any comment there, and I continue to not make a comment there. Just the fact that social media, via its algorithms, has a radicalizing effect that is unlike anything in human history. We've never had this level of like, hours of day of like curated what's going to get you most engaged. We've not had that before in human history. So there's a lot of philosophy around that I just don't hear people talking about. I'm disappointed, frankly. It's 2025. Do I have to do it? Do I have to make that? Does that have to be one of my themes? One of my themes on this stream is going to be drivers on these discussion streams. As long as we're talking about communication and influence, I'm going to be telling you about how people have different drivers. You can't get mad when someone doesn't understand. You can't get mad when somebody interprets words differently from you. When someone seems to have such a radically different opinion on a topic, you can't get mad about that stuff. People have different drivers. That's where it comes from. It doesn't come from, some kind of phenomena that's occurring. It comes from the fact that people have different backgrounds, different events mean things based on what you have previously known. The present moment is like it's like a stab of resonance into your memory. Somehow the present moment is akin to that somehow. The present moment is like tickling your own memories, and that's what communication is, or that's part of what communication is. It's like a tickling of your previous experiences in a certain pattern that carries meaning based on the driver. In any case, I'm still trying to get caught up on the chat here. I like tying it in. I like tying it into the main theme. This is good. Warheart brings up the topic of growth for the sake of growth, but you want to have some kind of limit so that it doesn't become like an overgrowth. Well, that's definitely a good insight. I'd agree with that. I have no further comment other than to agree with you. Warheart says, do you think AI is conscious? I say... My understanding of... I have very limited understanding of AI. I know a little bit about how large language models are trained, and like the most vague layperson understanding of how they are, like what's happening when you interface with an AI. You put in, you're like, hey, give me whatever, and then it's generating an answer for you. I have a vague layperson understanding of that. And that vague layperson understanding I have of large language models would say that no, I do not say that AI is conscious. My reference for consciousness is that consciousness is nature's solution to entropy. You know how everything on the physical plane, like anything made of molecules, anything that's governed by the laws of physics, that's ruled by entropy. You know that. You know that the laws of thermodynamics say that anything that has a physical form is governed by the way, if you're wondering why I have a roll of toilet paper here, I use this as tissues because I have chronic sinus issues, and they were flaring up this past like week or so. So I have tissues here. This is a much more efficient, compact way to have tissues when you need a lot of them. So that's why I use that as my prompt. Anyway, anything made of molecules or a system, a physical system, anything like that, one of the forces that governs it is entropy. And yet, nonetheless, we do not observe that absolutely everything on the physical plane is in total destruction and chaos. Like, look around you right now. You are using some kind of technology to hear me. There's cell phone towers. There's technology. There, you probably have some kind of clothes on. We do not observe that the realm of molecules is completely in utter disarray and destruction. And so there's something keeping things going. There's something keeping things together. My assertion is that consciousness is nature's solution to entropy. Why is it that you, literally you, just you, why is it that you know, are doing whatever you're doing right now? Why are you not just collapsed on the floor starving to death? Why not? The answer is you have something happening that is aware of your needs. And that something, that mysterious unnamed something that is aware of your needs, it has the ability to influence what happens in your local physical body. Do you know what this mysterious thing I'm talking about is? It's your conscious awareness. Your conscious awareness knows what your needs are, and it has the ability to direct what your body does in terms of how you manage your time and how you, I don't know, consume whatever. By the way, I see Benny is with us. Yes. So that's why I say consciousness is nature's solution to entropy. And furthermore, I assert it's an entirely different dimension that mankind currently doesn't seem to have a vocabulary to discuss, which is unfortunate, and I may have to shoulder the the glorious responsibility of introducing it. But that'll all come later. For now, I'm still getting caught up on the chat. AI is not conscious, no, because it doesn't manage any kind of entropy. AI is just responding. The large language models that I'm aware of and how they're trained. AI does not. AI does not take responsibility for anything. Responsibility is the lowest level of consciousness, I would assert. And that includes just like a fundamental responsibility for your own physical well-being. Responsibility is the lowest level of consciousness, conscious awareness. The capacity to be intentional. That's what I mean when I say conscious. Perhaps I should distinguish between, like, there is something in you that is the passive receptacle to experience. And that, perhaps you could argue that's conscious awareness. Whereas a moment ago, I was really speaking more about your capacity to have intentionality. Anyway, that's what AI doesn't have, the large language models. It doesn't have intentionality, it doesn't have responsibility. Responsibility is the lowest level of intentionality. There's some discussion about consciousness and the definition of consciousness. All right, so Probes brought that up almost 20 minutes ago, and I've just given it to you now. Okay, all right, we're with it. Probes, or I'm sorry, Warheart says, "What are you selling?" I was selling you on the idea that I'm giving you very actionable things that can benefit you in your life when you communicate with anyone. If you speak in terms of what matters to them, and or you speak in terms of the three categories I gave you, something that empowers them, something that is pleasurable to them, something that is a strategic benefit to them. Those are the three general categories that will motivate anyone to pay attention. And that's the first step. If you're getting attention, or I'm sorry, if you're trying to influence, you got to get their attention. So that's what I was selling you. I'm giving you the product for free right now. I'm just selling you on the idea that it really is beneficial to you and you're going to get a lot out of it. For some people, like if we include everybody who's here on the live right now and also everybody else who watches this stream at any point, for some people, I just like completely solved some lifelong problem for you. So that's all I'm selling you on. Warhart says in the 1800s, they sold comet pills to make you less attractive to comet strikes. Are you serious? Come on now. Come on now. Is that real? What are you putting in the chat here? Positive reinforcement is good. Learned that from a hostage negotiator, says Warheart. Yeah, yeah. If we had a hostage negotiator join us, man, that person would have the insights all day. I would get off the stage and I would say, let's listen to this person instead. Because they're going to definitely know. Uh, they're going to know the like hardcore in 10 seconds influence someone technique. That's good. They're going to tell you exactly what words to use and what not to use. I'll give you some. I'll give you some. But I do not claim to have hostage negotiation skills. Still getting caught up on the chat here. This is good. All right, what else we got? This is good. This is good. This is good. By the way, let me applaud you guys because this is you putting your thoughts in the chat as I carry some discussion points. That's what really enhances it a lot. Because as I mentioned in the prior chat, or the prior stream rather, the prior discussion stream, that when we share thinking like this, it forms a processing capacity that exceeds our individual capacity. So it's awesome, 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 awesome to read and hear your insights and thoughts and such. This World Needs a Hero says, I watched a video where this girl with a prosthetic hand could have her hand crawl around just by thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know if we're thinking of the same one, but I believe I saw one. Maybe it wasn't real. I'm not sure if what I saw was a real thing. But the hand wasn't even attached. Like it was just like off doing whatever, and she could just think and have it do stuff. Which is wild. That's wild. Warheart says electricity and heat are drivers of the nervous system. Yeah, apparently there's an electric dimension to humanity. Humans have electricity biologically. That's not something we think about very often, is it? Warheart says trauma can have an influence upon drivers. Yeah, totally. I'd agree with that. By the way, I like this. I like the stream going in this direction. The previous stream went like this too, where we had. I'm going to reset the music. By the way, I'm interested in hearing your feedback about the music. I got mixed feedback on the prior stream that some folks say you like it, and it was nice to have a little thing going on in the background. The volume level was good. I also heard feedback that's like, well, I might want it even lower or nothing. So I'm trying to feel it out. I'm trying to see what helps give you the best experience possible. In any case, I got off track. Let me get back to the chat here. Trauma. Warheart says trauma. You're telling me, man. Trauma can inform your perception. So I have had trauma, and I continue to struggle with trauma. I recently wrote a song about trauma. You should check it out if you've not heard it. It's on my page here. Just go to my videos page and look for Role-Playing Catharsis. That's the song name. Look for Role-Playing Catharsis. That song is largely informed by some trauma that I have had and continue to deal with. But a couple of months ago, some of my traumas were like really intensely triggered. I didn't necessarily have a traumatic experience. I mean, I kind of did, but what was most intense was that it got triggered. The triggering of old traumas. Oh man, that's no joke. That's no joke. And so my song, I express that. My song, Role-Playing Catharsis. Check that out in my videos. Role-Playing Catharsis. Yeah, totally. That informs your drivers. Absolutely. Warheart coming through with just like the Kool-Aid man through the wall kind of insights here. So that's good. I'm getting caught up on chats from 10 minutes ago. It's good though. I am getting caught up. I like when you guys interact with each other. that again, that just it fuels the capacity of us processing things in a united manner. Warheart says, I often use toilet paper as tissue also. I never bother getting tissues. I usually don't get tissues, but I do have a couple boxes of tissues. I have one in the guest bathroom. A box of tissues in the bathroom that guests are likely to use. So that's about as far as it goes. Otherwise, I just use the toilet paper. Warhart says, or Probe says, everything will decay. And Warhart adds, even our bodies do that though. Isn't there like a decaying and a growing? Yeah, isn't that like 7 years or something? Every 7 years, every cell of your body has been replaced or something like that. Like you are driving a completely different set of molecules than the one you were born in. Something to that effect is once every 7 years. I don't know if that. I don't know how accurate that is. And that, that says something about not only consciousness, because you feel like you're the same person, don't you? You don't feel like you're a different person from when you were born or your, I don't know, childhood and whatnot. You feel like you're the same person, even though supposedly, if we operate on the assumption that supposedly you are piloting a completely different meat sack, you are piloting a completely different set of molecules, you still feel like the same person, right? So, that says something about, I don't know what, consciousness, awareness. Is there something, is memory? Do we have to talk about electricity? We talked about that earlier. Biological electricity. Is that how your identity is stored? Is that what you really are? If the body changes, then what is not changed? Is there something electrical that needs to be incorporated into this conversation? Benny says AI can be dangerous. It can be if you defer decision making to it. If you defer decision making to AI, it can be dangerous. Yeah, and that's why many what would you say, fields? That's not quite the right word I'm looking for. Domains. I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for, but in many ways, you observe that AI use is being kind of shepherded in the direction of offering suggestions for a human to review. Like that is what AI is shaping up to be. At least the large language models that most people know, ChatGPT and such. It seems to be shaping up to be like Microsoft kind of got it right. They frame it in terms of your AI assistant, which is what's the Copilot? That's what they call it. The Microsoft one is Copilot, and that's the right way to think about it. I think that's what it's just sort of naturally becoming. AI is a way to provide options for a human to review. And in that sense, it's not, I mean, it still can be dangerous. And it can be dangerous because of all these influence topics that I'm beginning to tiptoe into today in this stream, where I give you these tips on how to influence people. It's like anything I'm going to tell you, or the hostage negotiator is going to tell you, the AI can know how to do that to the millionth degree. You could train an AI to be influential. That's potential danger, because the AI is going to be very influential. I'm talking about how social media is influential. Listen, AI is going to be like the rocket ship of influence. That can be very dangerous. So yeah, that I would consider a legit risk with AI being trained on how to be influential. Warhart says the physical CPU of presumably that came back to the person discussion, our bodies, is subject to entropy. You're right. You're right. And that's why the consciousness has to maintain it, which is interesting. Consciousness has this like recursive element to it. Everything physical is subject to entropy. Things that are mimetic seem to be the opposite. They seem to exhibit extropy. Those are things that can live in a culture. Those are things that can be known through the dimension of consciousness. That dimension, the dimension of consciousness, that's not subject to the laws of thermodynamics. That's subject to other laws that we don't understand yet. That's subject to laws of extropy, which are resonant, and they remain and they build and they grow and they get stronger. Those are extropic laws. And humanity doesn't really know that stuff. We're not really biologically equipped for a sense for that. But that's why I say the internet is a synthetic window into exploring this additional dimension. Because, like, for example, here's something that like a lot of people know now that probably people didn't really know before the internet. But a lot of people understand at this point pretty well that you can't just put anything on your social media page. You can't just, you know, for example, if you're in college and you ever want to have a job, you should probably not have like years of hundreds of photos of you doing very, very irresponsible things or inflammatory things. You know, like you can't do that stuff if you also want to manage your life. Yes, you can in principle post anything you want. Uh-huh. But you also have to manage your life. And that's more visible now because of the internet. So we could say something like the internet through this technology has synthetically provided us a window into understanding that there is such a thing as memory, and there is such a thing as other people's um, like impression of you. That's something that exists and that you need to curate. And through having a social media page, you now have a very vivid sense of curating what you put out there, but it might not have been as vivid without the internet. This has always been here. There has always been this dimension of you needing to, let's say, express what you wish to cultivate. That has always existed, but it wasn't very visible to you. I mean, it might not have been as visible to you or to generations in the past. And yet, the internet is making it visible to everyone. That's why, again, I say the internet is like a synthetic window, a synthetic window into this additional dimension of reality that humans just don't seem to be naturally biologically equipped to spontaneously detect in all cases. Some people are, but not in all cases. I'm still getting caught up on the chat here. I'm almost caught up. This is good. This is good. Warheart says the law of entropy applies to AI. In my understanding, it does not. At least of how large language models are trained, it does not apply to entropy, or rather, entropy does not apply to that. In fact, if you study how large language models work, or how they're trained, it's almost I wonder. Let me preface this with I wonder. I don't want to make this firm assertion, or rather, I don't want to assert this firmly. So I wonder if studying how large language models are trained, which includes probability matrices that are like billions of variables wide, if that would provide insight into like what is the fundamental layer of this additional dimension I'm talking about. Like what would be the atomic or quantum layer of this additional dimension? I'm very much prefacing this with I wonder. I wonder. Because isn't that how in quantum physics, isn't that how that's often characterized, that it's things are probabilities? I mean, that's what AI is. AI is just like a gigantic matrix of probabilities, period. And it can be updated, but it doesn't like decay. It can be updated with probabilities and further trained, but it wouldn't decay. So it seemed, my understanding of large language models, I don't think entropy applies, but I'm open to hearing more on that. By the way, I like how these discussion streams go in terms of as we get nearer to the end, this is getting more open. I like that. I led the conversation for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. I kept it pretty focused on the topics of persuasion and getting someone's attention and reminding you about the drivers. I led that for about 45 minutes to an hour. But now we're getting a little more wavy. I like this. I think this is good. Maybe having discussion streams have that built in, like it's expected that toward the end, after I finish, I feel like I've given you enough. I actually had more notes prepared based on what we talked about today. This will probably last us another 5 or 6 streams. I thought like maybe we can run through this today. It's like, oh no, I only handled a very, very small amount, but that's good. I'm giving you a lot of repetition as well. If you didn't notice that, that's intentional. As as I led the conversation today, there was a lot of me going over the same thing multiple times and repeating. That's in order to make it more familiar to you, to make it more comfortable for you to hear. That's another influence thing. That's another thing you can do to influence is just repeat. The more familiar something is, the more someone accepts it uncritically. And that's one of the ways social media that really takes people out. I'm still getting caught up on the chat. Warhart confirms from way earlier the comet pills thing. That was all about Halley's Comet. People were worried about that, so they sold comet pills. That's wild. I wonder if the comet pills really worked. Like if they didn't sell the comet pills, then would there have been a cause for concern? I'm gonna speculate no. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess the comet pills were pure snake oil. And so look at that, by the way. Like the fact that I just said snake oil. You know what that means? If you know what that means, it's because you have a driver that is interpreting the words. This is what I'm talking about when I say the drivers are these additional layers beyond just the words. If you understand English, then you know what snake oil means. You can imagine a snake and oil. However, it might be the oil of the snake. You can imagine that. But if you know what snake oil means, you know that it's not literally a snake oil from a snake or whatever that means. That's a driver. That's part of a driver. The fact that you know that that's like a reference. It's a cultural reference to whatever it was. What was it? People in the 1700s or 1800s or something used to sell like some kind of oil to oil a snake or something. That's where it literally came from. But it means just to, sell someone a useless nothing and just swindle them. That's what it means. And you know that when I say snake oil. Why do you know that? It's because you have a driver for it. I didn't convey that in the literal words, but you have this driver. And my point from the previous stream and this stream is everybody has different drivers. So you will be most effective if you go into your communications and your interpretations. You'll be most effective if you go into them knowing that meaning is not in words or in experiences or things you observe. Meaning is in the drivers. Communication is effective. Just again reminding you, that's me repeating again. I'm just reminding you of these things and helping it become more familiar to you so that you can apply these in your own life and get a lot of benefit out of this. There's going to be so much goodness that you get out of this. Like there's going to start to be things that you observe yourself doing because you're processing these insights. It might start happening today. It might start happening tomorrow. It might start happening in the next week. But there's going to come moments where you start to notice that you're using the techniques that I'm talking about, and you're going to start to notice how they make you more effective. And it's partly because of how I'm talking to you, including repetition, including framing it as as benefiting you. All of that is why it's helping you. And you're going to start to observe it. You're going to start to notice it. And I aim to provide you with more benefits. As I say, I have a whole list of stuff here that I was going to talk about. So this is going to take us through a whole bunch of streams, honestly. And I encourage you to keep letting me know whether you're here live in the chat or if you're watching afterward. Let me know in the comments. Keep letting me know, like, which parts of this resonate with you. Which parts of this do you want me to go deeper into? Let me know that stuff, because I can provide things that I think of, but you'll get more out of it the more that you influence what I decide to discuss. We're still getting caught up on the chat here. Probe says, this is pretty profound actually. Probe says, I'm aware that I'm just a mere speck of dust in terms of the universe, in terms of time and space. Oh, totally. Man, that's another topic that we could go into a lot. Humility. A lot changed for me when I had intense, humble experiences. I guess it's not like I just had one, those continue to happen, and they can continue to happen. Humbling seems to be a window into something. Having a humbling, not necessarily humiliating, but including humiliating, but not necessarily humiliating, but humbling. Humbling seems to be a window into something. I don't know that I can clearly articulate it, but Probes is with it. Probes has got it. Mere speck of dust. Yeah, if you can accept that in your heart, that you're just like the most not consequential thing ever. If you can accept that, it's a window into something powerful, something good, healthy, powerful. Warheart says, and yet you mean the world to somebody. That is some heartwarming stuff, my man. That is some heartwarming stuff. You mean the world to somebody. I like that. Probe points out that isn't it interesting to think that the fact that you mean the world to somebody, that's part of their limited perspective. It's part of their interpretive framework and everything. That's an interesting insight. I like that. You mean the world to someone, and it's due to the unique music of how their interpretive layers stack when you come into focus. That's I like that. That's illuminating. I like that. Benny says the earth is a strange place. Bruh. Like, we know so nothing. We know nothing. I mean, we know more stuff than humans 1,000 years ago. And by the way, that's more of this extropic behavior. There's this additional dimension in which things like knowledge and awareness maintain and grow more resonant. That's why we know more than people from 1,000 years ago. Humans uniquely have that. Maybe I shouldn't make, I mean, I don't know if I can make such a radical assertion, but it seems to be that of the organisms we're aware of on Earth, it seems to be like that humans are uniquely, with their adaptability, or with our adaptability, we are uniquely capable of transmitting great amounts of learning and information through culture, and thus have this like immortality in a sense, this transcendence of the physical death. Humans somehow uniquely can, like, you're aware of someone from 1,000 years ago, what, Genghis Khan or whatever. You have some vague sense of who I'm talking about. That's because humans have this like transcendental memory that goes beyond the physical existence. This is the additional dimension that I'm telling you. The internet is a synthetic window into revealing that there is memory. Like, memory extends beyond just what you remember of your life. There is the world has memory in it somehow. And I'm open to the idea that we have memory as a part of some kind of like cultural, shared interpersonal resonance. I'm not necessarily asserting the medium that the memory exists, but there is such a thing as memory in nature. That's not limited to a supposedly someone's brain or what have you. Memory is a phenomenon, and the internet is making that visible, among other things. Benny makes a comment about AI having uh, being used on YouTube to detect copyright claims. I have no awareness of that, but I have heard other people talk about such topics. Warhart goes back to the entropy topic from earlier. Wasn't the Turing machine experiment successful because of entropy? I am not familiar with what you're talking about. The Turing machine experiment. I know what a Turing machine is. What's a Turing machine experiment? Is that the one where you hide you have someone interact through a computer or perhaps some other medium, and they have to tell whether it's a person or an AI? Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure if that's called the Turing machine experiment. I know of that thing that I'm talking about. Benny says we see changes over years. Yeah, over time, your consciousness becomes more stable and more based on a self-referential pattern of reaffirming your existing perspective. That's that's what gives you an aging mind and an aging heart and an aging spirit, is having this self-referential, self-reinforcing of existing. The people who are most vibrant are the ones who are continuing to evolve themselves, not just learn things, but change themselves. Those are the people who tend to be the most like youthful and creative. The more that you can bring the energy of the unprecedented, the more that you have a reason to continue existing. That just gets underscored and emphasized. I see we got some musings about what if physical hardware failed, then our AI and technology would also fail due to the laws of entropy. Yeah, that's right. So when I say that there's this additional dimension where there's memory and such, I don't mean to say that there's an additional dimension like in fiction where I don't know, we're going to cut a hole in reality and I'm going to step into this parallel world. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not making any comment on that possibility at all. When I say there's an additional dimension, I mean like a literal mathematical dimension. Like how you can talk about a two-dimensional surface, a two-dimensional plane, but then there's this additional dimension of depth. There's a third dimension. There's another dimension. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's another dimension that exists in reality, but humans don't have a biological propensity to detect it. And yet the internet is a synthetic window into this additional dimension. That's my assertion. And so, therefore, what I mean is it's built upon and integrated with what we already know. It's not a parallel thing to escape to, it's another horizon of reality, physics, another horizon of existence, but it's just a wider scope of reality. It's not a parallel thing. It's a wider awareness. this additional dimension. I see there's a lot of entropic discussion here. Things eventually grind to dust, stone and rock and so on. Yeah. Yeah, the physical dimension is subject to entropy. We have to make, like, part of our task as conscious beings and possibly even creative beings, part of our task is like somehow transcending the entropic nature of the physical dimension, the material dimension. Material is useful, it's necessary. What we aspire to is built upon the physical dimension, but we mustn't be lost in it because it is entropic. We have to somehow supersede and go beyond what that entropic doom holds for us, which is not much. The goal of immortality is that you survive the entropy. That's what we're striving for. So yes, there's dust, but how can you continue to ride the wind? Because that's all you ever were doing in the first place. Warheart says he plans to get cremated. Really? Probe says even diamonds decay. Man, what is the decay rate on a diamond? Is it like way mad forever? Even if not literally forever? Warhart says the Turing machine experiment, it generates replicable patterns. Okay, maybe something I need to look up later, or maybe Warhart, you can provide more on that too. Was it really providing anything of value, or was it just a trick of the calculator, trick of the math? I understand that. How do we know any aspect of what it really is? I get that. I'm with it. Man, this is dope. This is a good stream. There's still some chat here. Warhart says there was something about two computers, two AIs, babbling to each other, but somehow entropy played a role in that babbling developing into meaning. You could be right. Maybe you're right. I don't see how entropy would be related, but I can see how something about, oh, you know what? Okay, maybe this is what you're talking about. Okay. So there is an element of the way that large language models are trained, where after repeated confirmation of a certain stimulus, like, did you know? Not everybody knows this, but did you know that every time you do those CAPTCHA things, where it's like select every frame where there's a motorcycle, some of those are confirming what you do as a validation measure, but other times you're training AI. Like, that's part of what that is, and they don't tell you when, like, they're going to let you through no matter what you click, but you're training AI. You don't know which ones are which, and it's probably both in some cases, but that's been happening for like 10-20 years or something. Anyway, so what happens when you do that through repeated exposure? The AI has like probabilities that are arbitrary when it begins. It'll have various probabilities associated with whatever. Am I detecting these pixels in these colors? Is that a motorcycle or not? The AI will have certain probabilities. It's like, well, if it has this, it might be, and then it'll make a guess. And then when you or someone else gives it positive reinforcement, it revises its probabilities in order to more accurately guess. And part of that process indeed includes, as if this is what you're talking about, Warhard, then this makes sense. Part of that probability revision includes updating a matrix, like a billion dimensional matrix, or multiple billions. It's like it's linear algebra on levels that we could never begin to fathom. But literally billions of dimensions in these giant probability matrices. And part of what the AI does when you train it, or when someone trains it, is that it strengthens certain values, certain numerical values in various positions in its matrices of probability, and it weakens others. And that's how the probabilities are reflected. And so when it gets another image and it tries to predict whether there's a motorcycle in there, it's going to go look at its probabilities and all of its numbers and all of the positions and the billions of spots in this matrix, billions of dimensions, not to mention the billions upon billions of values of probabilities. So there is indeed, you can say, like a reduction. If you have heard or heard this idea of entropy applied, I'm happy to defer to. I don't claim to be an AI training expert, but this element of how they're trained, I can see perhaps, you know, certain elements of it are atrophying. You know, these probabilities. No, that's not a motorcycle. That atrophies a bit. Maybe atrophy. Warhart says, "Can you please repeat those actionable tips?" Yes. Yes. So the actionable tips are as follows. That first, there's the idea of the driver. Cool, we're with it. I'm probably going to keep bringing that up in future streams just to keep repeating and reminding you. But we have the driver's idea, and we've got built on that you have to speak in terms of what the other person values or what they think, how they interpret things. You have to speak their language, use their driver. That's the general insight. That's not, you have to still figure out how to make that actionable, but that's the general insight. The three actionable things I gave you are that for any person in any situation, there are three basic core things that motivate them to pay attention to you or pay attention to something. So this is your window to get someone's attention. And that is to talk, or here are the three things. You talk in terms of these three things. The way you frame it, the way you sort of hint at it. The more subtle, the better, but you don't have to be subtle. And the three categories are that you're giving the person something that empowers them. Look how good this is for you, that you're going to be able to do this. You're going to be more effective at this. This will be easier for you. This will be, in some way you're more capable. That's the first one. Make the person empowered. The second one that I gave you today was speak in terms of pleasure. You're going to like this. This is going to be so good. Boy, this is going to be so fulfilling and satisfying. That's the second category of pleasure. So you got, this is empowering for you. This is pleasurable for you. The third category was what I called a strategic or a strategy. Here's your strategic means of avoiding something that's fearful or that's painful. Here's your strategy. Look how I'm going to save you from a horribly undesirable thing. Those are the three categories of things that are about as close to universally attention grabbing as you can get. I'm still getting caught up on the chat. There's a lot going on in the chat, by the way, that I'm not calling out. So if you're not reading the chat along with us, there is more to see in there. You can have an even richer experience. Benny says, from music to another dimension. Yeah, man, I got a lot. I got a lot that I'm ready to bring on these discussion streams. So I do intend to keep doing these. And I do want to hear what resonates with you, what, which parts of this you'd like me to dive into. As I said, this topic of like getting attention, and ultimately we're going to keep going into influence and what engages people, these kinds of things. I have a lot of experience with this. I've been doing this stuff for almost 20 years. I've taught thousands of people. I have coached hundreds of people. I help other people to do this. Like I'll be paired up with someone that I work with, and I'll observe them in some way, giving a presentation, teaching a class or something. I'll observe them and then I'll meet with them and give them a bunch of feedback. And a lot of it will be positive. I'll be like, man, you're so good at this and this and this. You're so effective at this. Here's why it's so effective. Here's some things we can do together to get you even strong. You have such a talent. Let's develop your talent. That's part of what I do when I coach people, these hundreds of people I've worked with. And I also help people to say things like, here's something you're doing that is counterproductive and you might not realize it. Here's something that I didn't observe you do, but if you did, it would be a lot stronger. Here's something you did that you should probably stop doing that. I give them that kind of feedback too. So I've done a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of experience with this. So I have a lot to offer. And by the way, I don't necessarily mean these discussion streams to be restricted to this topic of speaking and influence. We could go anywhere. I really want to know what what strikes you as the move. What would you tune in for? That's what I'm looking for. Warheart says, I'm still learning about AI. I don't have a lot of information. There's a good page. Let's see if I can find this real quick, because this is a good page in general. I'm happy I get an opportunity now to recommend his page to you. Let me see if I can find it. Look at the name. Yeah, this is it. I'm going to put this in the chat even. This page I'm giving you, this guy is a, there you go. He's a teacher of mathy, computer sciencey, physicsy stuff. I'm not sure whether he's a teacher like I am. That is to say, like I walk into a classroom of people. I've spoken to hundreds of people, you know, a group of people. I don't know if he's done that professionally. I think by this point in his career he has, because he's over 7.5 million followers on YouTube. Like this guy's a real deal. But he has a very, oh, this guy's so good. He has a very clear and effective way of illustrating math topics. The reason I bring it up now is that he has a series, I believe. Does he have a playlist? He at least has a few videos, I believe, on AI. And his explanations are just so clear. I love his explanations of imaginary numbers. It's really good. Anyway, if you didn't look in the chat, the channel here on YouTube, I can't speak to whether it's on other social media, presumably yes. Looks like he has Twitter and Instagram and Facebook also. I should follow him on Instagram. I use Instagram, by the way. Follow me on Instagram. If you're a Discord person, friend me on Discord. I'll invite you to my Discord. We have discussions, some discussions like this, like these. We can continue these discussions in the Discord. I should start encouraging you to do that earlier in the stream. I'd be like, feel free to take anything I say and put it in the Discord to talk more about it. I should have said that. Anyway, the guy's name on YouTube, 3 Blue 1 Brown. 3 Blue 1 Brown. Awesome channel. Really good videos. And he does have at least a few on how AI work, how AI are trained. In fact, I'm lightly scrolling through it right now. There's already a few near the top of the list. But you might want to start with, in fact, here, I'm going to give you one that, here, I'm putting another one in the chat here. This is a link to the specific video that I was thinking of. This is where he talks about how large language models are trained. You can find others beside this one and other videos. You don't have to go to just this guy's page. But This link is the one I was alluding to earlier, that he has good videos on this, on how AI is trained. Like, how do you understand it really? And he has other videos too. This is just a good starting one. It's only 8 minutes long, which is really short for him. A lot of his videos are much longer than that. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Probe says speculation can be a good thing, and I'd agree. I would agree. I like speculation. Speculation is one way that we explore the unknown. Speculation isn't always right, but sometimes it is, and sometimes it leads to the next step. So speculation 100% has a place in legitimate intellectual endeavor, as does imagination. Sometimes people think imagination is, art, creative, which it is, but you need imagination for everything, really. Science, business. Benny says, I don't really like AI or everything being automated. Yeah, I would agree. Not everything should be automated. There are some things that are, really just very convenient. If you can automate them, there's a lot of things in that category that automation is good. But I would agree, not everything. There's a lot that humans must continue to be in the driver's seat for. I see there's some discussion about an MPC in Ableton and all this. That's good. That's good. Friends, this has been a really good stream. What is it? An hour and 45 minutes we've been going. That's good. I like how we had the first 45 minutes to an hour was a pretty coherent discussion I led, somewhat focused, self-referential and resonant. And then for the past 30 to 45 minutes here, we've been kind of musing in little different directions and diving a little deeper, going into tangents. This is good. This is good. We should keep doing this. We should keep doing this, friends. These discussion-based streams, this vertical streams, just talking about stuff. In the next stream, here's what we'll do. In the next stream, I will once again do a recap of drivers, the concept of the interpretation frameworks, interpretation layers, and how it's informed by your experience. Do a recap of all that. I'll also recap the idea that you have to speak in someone else's terms in order to get through to them, in order to communicate with them, and ultimately to influence them. And we'll see. I may or may not recap the 3 actionable, near universal attention motivators. I may or may not bring that up. We'll see. It's good. It's really handy to know that. Yeah. Good stream. Good stream. Shout out to Benny and Probes and Warheart. You guys have had a very big influence on the content of this stream. We have a lot of good, expansive processing capacity by talking together here. This is good stuff. Thank you for being here. Let's do it again. Let's do it again, my friends. I don't know when the next time I'm going to do a discussion stream is, when I'm going to do this vertical just on my phone. Please continue to give me feedback on the audio quality, by the way. This is very low technology right now, but we'll see about it. In any case, more of these are coming. More of these discussion-based streams. At this time, I would estimate that I'll experiment with at least one a week. I did the most recent episode I did 3 days ago, and we're experimenting here. This is twice in a week, but I don't want to promise that. Not yet. We'll continue to feel these out, see how these go. Should I continue talking about these topics? Is it useful? Should we talk about something else? Should it evolve into something else? I figure I'll give it at least a couple weeks. Probably at least one of these a week. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I am still doing the music streams. In fact, tomorrow I'm planning to do an unspoken stream, one of my instrumental streams. So you can look forward to that. I'm going to post uh, the upcoming Notify Me link. That's going to come soon. Is that going to come tonight? That might come in the next couple hours, or maybe not. It might come tomorrow. It'll probably be at about 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time zone. I think it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time zone. And it'll be an instrumental, being unspoken. Why am I doing an unspoken stream? Well, it's because now I'm using them as background music for these discussion streams. So I got to keep making these unspokens. So I'm going to do an unspoken tomorrow, an instrumental tomorrow. And you can also still look forward to the other types of streams. My tinkering in the studio, I've been doing those really heavily. That's the talking while we make some music, playing on the synthesizers. It's going to be really good. I see there's some good cheersing of the cleanup, not cleanup, the closing. What am I trying to say? Wrap up. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Wrap up. Probe says I enjoyed it. The stream. Best wishes. I said thank you for being here. You make it better. Warheart says I try. That's good, friends. Benny says I love it all around. Much respects. That's good. That's good. That's nice. I see the heart going through as well. The dynamic heart coming in. I like it. Friends, I will see you next time. Please have a very good day. Please have the best possible day. Please let your day bring you all manner of goodness and blessing. And I will see you in the next Reconsider It live stream.